Hello, this is Purge, bringing you guys a first-person replay commentary. This is another game from the LAN that I went to on Saturday. It's going to be a Tidehunter game, so if we hop into the Dota buff, we can look at Tidehunter as a whole and how he is played. In pub games, he is a little bit lower than middle of the pack, 60th this week. His win rate's about 51%, so he's a pretty balanced hero right now. His pick rate's fairly low. What is that, about 7% of all games total. His most popular skill build is a very low percentage, 7.8%, but it's definitely not the right skill build. If you're playing a support Tide, I kind of advocate for this build because it gives you the most damage and gank potential, but it's not really a good gank. It's just a 40% slow for 4 seconds, and it does lower armor. So against some heroes it's useful, but it's been a long time since I was like, yeah, I'm going to go roaming Tidehunter. It just doesn't work very well if your opponents are paying attention because you're not usually able to get within range and stuff like that. So the best build that you should do is usually 1 Gush, 1 Kraken Shell, and max Anchor, with sometimes getting 2 Kraken Shells and ignoring Gush until later. But generally you want at least 1 point of Gush because it's a really good skill point for 1. It does 110 magic damage with 1 skill point, which is about 30 damage more than a typical nuke. And it also slows for 4 seconds and reduces armor as well. So it's pretty darn good. Really fast cast, pretty low cooldown, really good ability. I think Gush is honestly a very good skill. Pretty darn good. Any armor reduction in the late game is always going to be useful. So common items that people build: Blink Dagger, Arcane Boots, both very, very good. Refresher is the highest win rate item other than Shiva's Guard, but Shiva's Guard is very, very good as well. But Refresher is fantastic, arguably better than Shiva's Guard, and you see things like Guardian Greaves, Pipe of Insight, Mech. The only reason that these items probably have a big win rate is because their sample size is pretty low. That means if you do actually have these items, it probably means that you're really farmed, which means that you're more likely to have those items in the first place. Whereas things like Brace or Perseverance means you didn't finish your Refresher. Basically, you're like, oh, I couldn't finish my Refresher. We lose the game. So that's not too surprising. Heroes that he's good against, AoE heroes, are heroes that are weak to AoE, basically. Good against Slardar because you can reduce Slardar's damage a lot with your Anchor Smash. The ability reduces the base damage that somebody does by up to 60% at level 4. So you usually want to cast that on your opponents a lot, at least your melee carries or your range carries, because it reduces their damage output by a big amount. So good against Slardar, I guess, for that reason. Also because Kraken Shell, as you take damage, it removes debuffs. So against the Slardar, the reason that that's probably showing here with Dota buffs evaluation, this is like it's like semi-calculated. It's an equation or something. So it's not just direct win rate. It's measuring it based on both in and outside of the matchup and comparing the difference against the base win rate. So it's I think the reason that it's showing that it's best versus Slar is because when Slardar casts amp damage, which increases the physical damage, that every 400 damage he takes, he removes it with Kraken Shell. So that's probably why Tidehunter is naturally good against Slar. And also you can keep him not moving, you can reduce his damage, and you can also stun him in burst damage. So that's probably why he's good against Slar. Good against Chaos Knight because you can kill his illusions very fast and also reduce the damage they do by a huge amount, especially because Chaos Knight usually only builds stat items. Same deal for Phantom Lancer. Usually only builds stat items, so that means that the 60% reduction is a flat 60% of all damage. If you build plus damage items like Daedalus or MKB or Divine Rapier, the Anchor Smash doesn't reduce that damage, but if you're just building agility items or strength items, if you're Chaos Knight, then Anchor Smash will flat reduce a lot of your damage output. So very good against some carries. It will also reduce Phantom Assassin's damage. I think Phantom Assassin's okay versus Tide, but I guess it's paying off versus the hero. She is often in melee range. Night Stalker, probably because Night Stalker Silence will get removed by Kraken Shell, so he can always cast. Same thing with Bane. Bane won't be able to grip him, and Vengeful Spirit, not quite sure. And Wraith King as well, I guess reducing damage, something like that. So if we look at worst versus, some of these kind of make sense. Timbersaw is good at bursting down strength heroes that are a little tanky, but I'm not quite sure on some of these other heroes. The worst versus don't completely look accurate. I'd probably say a lot of these guys are really tanky heroes that have tons of HP, and since Tide is very burst, really, then that kind of makes sense that he's not very good. He used to be better versus Undyne, but they changed Anchor Smash to not kill zombies anymore. So it's not quite as good as it was before. But yeah, Pugna, Shadow Fiend, Bloodseeker, just tanky heroes that can generally survive the burst is kind of what that looks like. So that's Tidehunter in pubs. If you look at my Dota buff, he is one of my highest played heroes of all time. 5th most played hero right now, tied with Enigma. My win rate's really high in him, 69.4. I think that's one of my highest win rates out of all of my heroes. Used to be the highest, but apparently it has gone. I had no idea that my Slug win rate was so high. But some of these other heroes I'm not too surprised about this one. My Wisp win rate, I don't think my Wisp is very good, so that's surprising. I feel good at Centaur, Death Prophet. My techies is apparently my best hero right now, winning 8 out of my 11 games, I think is how that math works out. Maybe 9. Not sure. Probably 8, 9. Because otherwise this would be lower than 80%. So that's me as a Tidehunter player. I feel really good about my Tidehunter. I feel comfortable playing him, and I ended up feeding this game really hard. So hopefully that will give you guys a bit of perspective. So we're just going to skip forward. We picked Winter Wyvern a lot first round here. We picked Lich a lot because it was something DPM was really comfortable with. And we picked a PL this game because they didn't have super good AoE. Basically just Rubik in line. Templar Assassin is pretty much, it's impossible for TA to deal with Phantom Lancer, basically. It's very, very difficult in the late game because if you keep doppelganging, you don't really know which PL is the real one, and you can very easily burn her mana and work her down. Bristleback, kind of the same thing. And Luna is not actually that good versus PL. A better hero would have been Sven. I think they should have picked a Sven instead, because Sven can very easily just continuously cleave down the PL. You need big cleave. The glaives do AoE damage in a way, but if those are bouncing to your illusions respawn really rapidly. So it's actually not very beneficial because you really wanna do tons of damage to them instantly and instantly know which one's the real one, or be able to burst them down in 4 seconds. The glaive does AoE, but it's really weak AoE. It only really adds up nicely if you're hitting real targets, basically. So Luna not really the solution versus PL. Plus, if illusions are up, it kind of counters Eclipse. Any times that the illusions eat Eclipse beams is something that's not hitting your team. So I think Luna was the wrong pick here. It should have been a Sven, definitely. If Sven was a capable hero that they could play, I think it would have been better. We also banned Gyro, which is pretty good versus PL, kind of the same thing as Sven, but I think they could have gotten away with Sven, maybe. So we last picked Tidehunter, and the reason we did this was because it's pretty good against lying Rubik heroes that, I mean, it's not necessarily good versus Rubik because Rubik can steal your Ravage, but if you stun these guys, they're often in a really bad spot. The Anchor Smash is really good versus Luna, Templar, Assassin, Bristleback because it reduces their damage by a moderate amount, and I'm fairly survivable against them as well. So I think Tide was a pretty good pick here. It also gave us some good team fight. Our picks were kind of greedy. There's some weakness with Lich, Winter Wyvern, PL, and Shadow Fiend, like where our heroes are a little weak in the early game, or the early mid team fights, whereas they had really good early game. Pretty much all throughout the game, they had really good heroes. So we wanted to make sure that we had decent team fight there. So this is my starting item build because I was anticipating a solo offlane. If you're against a dual lane, you can probably get away with doing something like a Stout Shield, but I don't really recommend buying Stout anymore. The reason is because Stout Shield doesn't stack directly with Kraken Shell. The way that it works is if the damage block from your Stout Shield or your Vanguard is a higher value than the levels of Kraken Shell you have, then you damage block it. But if you have at least 2 levels of Kraken Shell, then every single time you'll always block with Kraken Shell, because Stout Shield can't block higher than 16 now as a melee hero, and Kraken Shell blocks up to 24 at level 2. I mean, even a single point in Kraken Shell is technically equivalent to a Stout Shield now, because Stout Shield blocks like, what, 15% of the time? Or something like that. Let me put this in free camera and check so we can math this out really quick. I almost closed the game there, but God, I hate this. Alright, 50% to block 16 damage. So on average, it blocks 8 damage. So that means that if you have 1 level of Kraken Shell, it blocks 12 damage every time. So it's already better than Stout Shield by 50%. So there's basically, in my opinion, there's no reason to get a Stout Shield anymore in Tide. In the past, Kraken would block 8, and Stout Shield would block 20 damage 60% of the time. So much bigger percentage. It was basically equivalent to the old Kraken Shell. But due to the nerf, it's a lot better than it used to be. I had to Gush here to guarantee the kill on the Rubik, so we ended up doing that. Normally, you end up grabbing either your armor, Kraken Shell, or you grab Anchor Smash at level 1. So having to grab Gush to secure the kill was a little unfortunate. And to make matters worse, our Lich had to grab Frost Nova there. Nova Blast or whatever the heck it's called to secure the kill, so we didn't have Sacrifice, which really hurt our lane. And that's because we were anticipating a dual off lane to start, and that would allow me to get more experience basically because DPM would be able to consistently deny creeps, get us experience, and deny that farm from going to the Luna. So luckily we were able to block the range creep first, so that means that their creep wave will die. I also put an Observer Ward to the right side because I wanted to know where their heroes were if possible. And him getting hit that much from the Lich basically makes that trade completely worth it. So, a lot of cases, boots first is what you kind of need on Tide, in my opinion, because the first major item you really need is an Arcane Boots, if possible, because the Arcane does allow you to continuously cast spells, and if you do that, then you have no problem farming or anything like that. So that's often why I do aim for the arcanes here. This is a little scary, and once I realized the Rubik here, it was pretty much dead. I tried to gush the Rubik, I thought that would help, but at that point, Lich is so low on armor and survivability that it's very easy to get killed. So us losing that kill right there kind of messes up your whole lane. If you're playing a dual offlane with Lich, I think the only way it really works well is if you never die. If you actually never die and you get a kill or two on your opponents, and Lich is a really big success because it denies experience and all this other stuff. But because we ended up losing the Lich there, we get put in a really precarious situation where now I'm level 2, so I'm going to be okay, but Lich is still level 1. Lich can't just go to a lane and start sacrificing it. It basically gimps the Lich by not getting sacrificed level 1. So I think in a lot of ways, having to get Frost Nova, even if it was for a first blood against Rubik, I don't think it was worth it, honestly. At the very least, it really punished our lane, in my opinion. Because otherwise, we would have been able to constantly pull back the creep equilibrium. We would have gotten more safe last hits, all that stuff. So do your best to last hit when you're playing Tide. Whenever the creep wave comes in, it's really important to get as many last hits as possible. I was given a tango here. I was thinking about going on the line if he went uphill, but I think it seemed clear that there was actually an observer ward sitting down later on. We realized that was going on, and unfortunately the Lich is still not level 2. Really need to get level 2 here before we can be useful. Let's see if I can pull up levels. Hero level, Lich is still 1. I moved to the right here because I wanted to sentry block the whole spot, and I didn't think that the Luna would shift over, but she actually did shift over, so that was pretty bad of me. I also should have anchor smashed there before I took any damage. On the bright side, we were able to see them smoke, so there was obvious that they were going to be ganking mid, but I was pretty upset about dying in that way. I just didn't want them to continue pulling because of the fact that we were getting screwed with the fact that we didn't have level 2 on Lich yet. So I bought a Ring of Protection before I died and a TP scroll, I think. And the Ring of Protection basically just gives me a lot of survivability in the early game. We also blocked this. I blocked the small camp by shifting over that sentry, by the way. It did end up blocking. I can see it on the map that the camp didn't spawn, and that's really good for us. And as long as Shadow Fiend plays really safe right now, anticipating the supports ganking him, then as you can see, they ended up shifting back. They're going to pull, and now they can't actually pull anymore because of the fact that I did end up blocking that. So me blocking that for my death isn't worth it, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I just should have done a little bit safer, and maybe even gone more levels of Kraken Shell. If I go more Kraken Shell and I have boots on top of that, and these supports are only hitting for about 55 damage, if I can reduce that by about half and anchor smash them, then I end up not taking any damage. And the build that I basically went was a lot more aggressive. 2 anchor, 1 gush, doesn't block their damage, but allows me to farm a little better and hopefully reduce incoming damage. So the build you go is a little dependent on what's going on in the laning stage, and I think I didn't adjust properly. I really should have had at least 1 armor here, I think. Would have been much better than just going the build I did. It was pretty hard to harass the Luna as well here, because he had boots already on me, so I lost my boots advantage. I can't really pressure the Luna, and if the supports do show up, I can definitely die. But luckily I can kind of see where the supports are due to the fact that I put that observer ward down, so as long as I'm paying attention, I shouldn't be dying anymore. Wasn't what happened, but it's something that I should be able to have. Continue to get last hits. The Ring Protection does help out a lot though, honestly. I might have been able to get killed there. I've got my Kraken Shell finally, but honestly, if I went like Gush, Kraken, or something like that, or Gush, Kraken, Anchor, when I went to go place that ward, I think there's a chance that I would have been able to survive. Or I should have watched that the Luna was rotating immediately, and I should have immediately backed up, basically. I also think we had a sentry ward to start the lane. We should have checked for a lane ward, because I think they had one the entire lane, the laning stage. We should have been able to check for that, basically, and say like, oh, you know what? We have a sentry. Let's check to see if they have a lane ward, because if they have a lane ward, it's gonna be harder for us to deal with this. Looks like they're dewarding my sentry right now, or at least they're looking for it. I was worried about not dying here. He should be able to find the sentry now. Should have anchor smashed for that. I could have gotten 2 CS very easily. One of those things that you see after the fact, but when you're playing, you don't always notice. But I got a couple CS. I wasn't last hitting well here, but things were going kind of okay. We were getting a little bit of farm. Shadow Fiend was doing pretty well at 5 minutes. I came up way too far here. And all it needed to be was a Lucent Beam, and then I was definitely dead. So this is a pretty big mistake. And unfortunately, I wasn't even able to get my Anchor Smash off either. So a little bit too much damage there, and positioning error led to me getting killed. So that was pretty bad. I really shouldn't be dying like that. It's not okay. If you're playing offlane. I mean, it's a dual offlane with the Lich, but what we basically should be doing is just playing really greedy and or non-greedy, playing really safe basically, and just continuing to sap experience if possible until I can get closer to 6 while also denying what Luna's got for last hitting. She's not really that far behind though, she's got 27, plus we've also given her some kills, so her net worth is still higher than our carries, so we're definitely losing the lane much more than we should, because I shouldn't have died. We lost Tom here, he was against the Bristleback. We didn't really do a good job of protecting the safe lane. That's one of the things with, if you're doing a dual off lane with a Lich, what you need to do is, you need to have your other support dedicate to zoning the off laner, assuming that you can't win the 1v1. And a Bristle is a hero that's very difficult to punish. I did grab a second level of Kraken Shell here because I did die a few times that I didn't want to, so it will increase my survivability by a decent amount, even if they have a moderate amount of magic nukes, I should still be okay. But what Lumi did at the start of the game was he moved mid to try to snipe the courier, but I don't think you can do that if you have a dual offlane, because then their offlane can just get tons of levels right away, and then you can't zone him later, because at that point he's gotten too much in the early game. So I think what Lumi should have done to start the game was zone the Bristleback, and then go to protect the PL. But a lot of the times in the early game, the PL had a lot of trouble because he was basically zoning versus a Bristle the entire time, and Bristle actually has more farm than he does. So at this point, they're definitely winning the game versus us. That is very clear. We could have killed him right here, especially because I saw the supports were ganking mid. I got hit by a lot of those. I got really unlucky there, I think. But I felt the kill there. Luna stayed too far, and then I saw supports were mid, so I knew that we could kill the Luna. But unfortunately, the Lich went back to sacrifice. So at the point that I went on the Luna, the Lich was back, and I think I should have been able to get away with that. There was 3. Let's see how many Lucent Beams I got hit by. It was a lot, and there were creeps. So okay, so we're gonna slow this down. Alright, so right now, there's 3 creeps within range of Eclipse. First hit, second, third hit. Okay, I got hit by 2 out of 5, plus a Lucent Beam. It wasn't terribly unlucky, I guess, because it's like 3 units, so it was going to hit one of us 3, and I got hit by 2. And the last one was guaranteed. I think I got a little unlucky there, but it wasn't super unlucky. The unfortunate part was just that DPM retreated to use the sacrifice at the same point that I went for the kill. So that was just really unfortunate there. I decided to TP for this one because there was some juking going on. I felt like this was definitely a kill. She should have stayed aggressive though, and that was a kill otherwise. That was very frustrating to me because I saw that kill opportunity and I TP'd for it. Like, if DPM ran up right now, because she doesn't have any threat, right? Like, she's got a level 3 nuke that does 375 damage. The Luna's at 350 HP. If she just slowed and right-clicked her a couple times, I would have been able to get in gush range, I think. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. And it made matters worse that they had an observer ward here. So they did have a lane ward the whole time. That was one problem that I realized here. I was like, oh, they probably have a lane ward. And I think we saw this die about now. So like, oh, they had a lane ward this whole time. So that was really unfortunate. We weren't able to get that Luna kill. So I ended up dying for a 3rd time now. 0, 3, and 1, yeah. It gets worse. Doesn't get better. But I felt like we should have killed Luna those times. That was probably 2 times that we could have killed Luna, I think. So at this point we saw the observer ward go down and we realized why they had good initiations as a whole. Yeah, our farm is very behind. But the lift on me was a bit of a mistake. That should have been on the Lich. But the line came from the river. That was nicely done. So that guaranteed the Lich kill. They did that slightly badly, but with the line being there, worked out nicely. So lose the Lich again, and if we look at the amount of times we died, it's been a lot. Lich twice, me 3 times, which is way too much. Like, that is a complete failure of aggressive dual lane, right? Like, if you die more than like twice, you've lost your aggressive dual lane. You have not accomplished what you needed to. Any sacrifices, any like delay in their farming, oh, that was really unfortunate. I wasn't watching perfectly, and I ended up getting lifted there, which got me killed. I was really upset about that one. 4th death. It gets worse. But I shouldn't have died there. That's a very good tri-lane though. 3 ranged heroes, they all benefit from the bonus damage that Luna has. And they have 3 disables basically. So even if I'm only slightly out of position, Lucent Beam will stun me long enough for the other abilities to get within range. So just a really tough game for me. But due to my faults, honestly, because of the fact that that I did get out of position a few times. There was some on DPM there playing the Lich, but the reason I TP'd back to lane here, a lot of times I'll walk back since this does delay my arcane boots, but I wanted to make sure that I ended up getting experience for this wave since it was under tower. This meant that I was able to get this without dying, and this will guarantee my 6, which is important for Tide because then it allows you to have Ravage. So now the important thing to do when you're really behind like this, and I'm stupidly behind, I've had like at least 2 kills that were completely my fault, and like maybe 1 or 2 kills that, alright, it was 3 kills that shouldn't have happened. Yeah, at least 3 kills that absolutely shouldn't have happened, that were entirely my fault, basically. And that puts me really behind. What you do to catch up is you basically need to ravage things. And you need to do that basically with a gank. You need to say, alright, we're going to ravage somebody that's low HP, and then we're going to fucking kill them. And if you don't use your ravage usefully in this way, then things get really bad. So we're trying to set up the kill on the Luna. Oh, he very easily could have Splinter Blasted. Lumi did this gank really poorly. This is Lumi's fault. At the time, I was criticizing his skill build. I think for a good reason. If you look at the skill build he went for 3 Arctic burns, and I've talked about this in Winter Wyvern games, but by leveling the skill up, all it does is increases your attack range, reduces the cooldown, mana cost, and increases the movement speed slow. It doesn't increase the damage at all. Whereas Splinter Blast, it scales very well. You get about 80 damage per skill point. And Lumi told me after the fact that he didn't have a Splinter Blast, but he really did. He could have Splinter Blasted right here for the slow, and he definitely should have. Because if he would have done that, we would have had an extra 100 damage. So I had to Ravage this because we were trying to get the kill. And I had to save Anchor Smash until late because I knew that this does more damage when his HP is full. So this hitting him actually does a very, very low amount of damage. But we needed the Splinter Blast to come out, basically. And the Eclipse came out, and he never actually casted Splinter Blast, it looks like. And he could have gotten him. He just needed a Splinter Blast to range creep. And when you do gank with Winter Wyvern, you have to Splinter Blast and Arctic Burn are basically at the same time to start off the slows. Because usually as your opponents are running away, they're going to be away from creep. So that gank there was completely Lumi's fault, not mine. I've died like 3 times, which was bad for me, but that was a gank. That was a kill that should have happened on the Luna. That was Lumi's fault. I'm going to throw him under the bus for that one because he deserves it. His skill build was improper there. Like, going that skill build helps him zone the bristle back, so in that way it's useful, but for ganking, if he's going to gank like that, he needs to cast more spells, and all he did was Arctic Burn. He needed to ulti to stop the Eclipse, or he needed to cast Splinter Blast just for the 100 damage, which is still really good for 1 skill point, you know? Still a really good ability at that. 7-second cooldown, 25% movement speed slow. Like, Winter Wyvern is honestly a very good ganker, but Lumi messed that gank up for sure. So that hurt. So now I'm at 0-5-1. This is as bad as it gets for the early feeding. And at this point, because we haven't pressured so hard, now they can basically just start diving. Unfortunately for me, I didn't feel like I could show up to that, and it's because we used our Ravage basically that they felt comfortable diving under tower. Because they knew that I was basically a hero that only had a level 1 Gush, and maybe a level 2 or level 3 Anchor Smash, which is terrible. Like, Tide's basic abilities are okay, but they're not good. I wouldn't ever say, wow, I would rather have Gush and Anchor Smash over, like, Lion's Impale and Lion's Hex. Like, you would never say that. Most of Tide's value comes in as high strength, and Anchor Smash being able to reduce damage, and Ravage being a very good skill, and that's where you get your value from. So they basically very well abused what we did this game, which was they punished our aggressive dual lane, and they also played around my abilities and my cooldowns a little bit. That was nicely done by them, and that's what they needed to do to get advantage in this game. Unfortunately, my comeback Ravage didn't work out on the Luna. But at this point, I've got Ravage in about 20 seconds, and we need to take a fight with it, basically, because they're going to pressure us otherwise. I went to go push the top lane, but then they called to defend the tower, which I definitely should have been moving earlier, since I did have Ravage in about 10 seconds. I should basically be there right when my Ravage is up, and there's no excuse to be there any later than that. I'm pretty happy to have this Ring of Ring of Protection, actually. Looks kind of bad for Lumi. He just kind of died right away. Was able to kill that guy for a lot. Got the Luna as well. A little bit of Anchor to clean up, and we won a really big fight there. And the Rubik also stayed around and died, which is a huge mistake. He played really well this game. I met him at the lane. He's a nice guy. he played pretty well this game. He stole a lot of really good spells, but that Ravage was fantastic. We got 3 kills out of it. Like the Bristle should have left is what should have happened. The Bristle should have backed off. If I didn't kill the Bristle, we wouldn't have gotten a bit of EXP boost there. And I mean, I still think they were maybe going to die. They overstayed a little bit, but at that point, that also allowed us to channel the Requiem, which slows people by a lot and reduces their damage, which is really good. And from that fight, I basically got about 1,300 gold or something, which is ridiculous. And I basically caught up just from that one Ravage, and that's something that I really like about Tide. If you get a good Ravage off and you hit everybody for, what, 200 magic damage, it's not a huge nuke, but it's really good. 200 magic damage, 2 seconds of stun, and then other abilities to follow that up. A lot of heroes can't handle that damage output, and Luna can't handle it very well, and a very, very low HP Bristleback definitely can't handle it. He got really low to start off that fight. If he wasn't so low and I wasn't able to solo kill him, I wouldn't have nearly as much gold, but obviously we're in a good place. And very wisely they said, okay, Ravage is down, now we push again, and they can definitely get away with that. I think we were talking about defending that, but we didn't get ready in time, so we lost that tower kind of for nothing, and I spent a lot of time here just walking around. But part of the problem is that I can't just jungle right now because I don't have arcane boots yet. I thought it was much, much better to go for the straight blink dagger afterwards, and I think it was, honestly. Definitely much better. Anchor smash to start things off. Keep them slowed. Didn't anticipate the line being here. And he was able to kill me. I should have looked at the map though. I bet I could have spotted him. But he messed up his meld there. He should have just melded in place. He might have been able to stay alive. But we basically went 1 for 1 there. Killing the TA for me is completely worth it in my opinion. Also used the Finger of Death. Tom made a bit of a mistake there. And he ended up getting solo killed by the Luna. That was actually a very big mistake, but it's okay. Because Tom honestly played better than anybody else did on our team. Throughout the entire lane. So everybody makes mistakes sometimes. Swapped all my circlet here because I was going to make a wand. I think it's fine to build the wand really quick because it gives you a bit more survivability. I've got Ravage up here, so I thought that catching the Luna would be really good if possible. But it seemed like he was backing off at this point, so... But rushing for the blink like that, I think if you're behind, it's the better way to do it. If it's the early laning stage and you get a quick arcane boots, then you can use it to fall back to farming, or you can use it for other reasons. Like it's basically just good to go the fast arcane if you're doing well, in my opinion. If you're not doing well and you have a bit of gold surge like I did, winning a team fight is all of a sudden a blink dagger, and then it kind of like makes your hero relevant. Like despite my early feeding, winning that one team fight and then the next team fight going okay was a really good advantage for us. It puts you as an initiating hero. You don't really need to snowball really hard. You just need to continue to stay relevant, and you can stay relevant with your ability to position properly and to use your skills correctly. And I'm able to do that now because I do have a blink dagger. And again, the ring of protection actually being quite useful this game because they do have a lot of physical damage. Bristleback, TA has minus armor. They have plus damage from the Luna. I was very happy that I bought this. I don't actually ever throughout the course of the game turn it into anything, but I think that's fine because it's only 200 gold. It's very, very cost efficient right now because it gives 3 armor for that. So, and that armor translates to about 18% more HP. So buying that 200 gold item is equivalent to having 180 HP versus only physical damage, assuming all of my damage is physical. I was thinking about showing up to that fight, but it looked like it was pretty much over, so I did not go to that. And he was, yeah, it looked like the PL was going to die as well. So if I was there at the start of that could have been good for me to Ravage, but I wasn't there at the start of that. So now what we were doing is waiting for somebody to come top, because it's time to get a value Ravage again, or basically what you do at this point is Ravage anybody you can and score a kill out of it. I was a little worried about getting spotted from the creeps here. And also we flew the courier around. I flew the courier around the ward vision because if they have a ward anywhere in your top rune, it's very likely that they'll spot it. So we're kind of just waiting to see if somebody will come top, and it's very, very important that I don't show in the wave. Maybe if SF shows, that's fine. Maybe they have an observer ward that's spotting me, but now finally Luna shows up and we can go for the damage. And we get a very, very easy kill on Luna. We don't have Ravage now, but we killed the enemy carry, which is completely worth it in my opinion. If we look at the fight recap, look how much gold we got out of that. Isn't that incredible? We got 460 gold on Shadow Fiend. I got 300. Winter Wyvern got 400. All because that's the most farmed hero on the Dire team, or at least it was. And it is. It was the most farmed hero on the Dire team. He just won another team fight, and bam, getting that advantage is so huge. Like occasionally, it's worth it to Ravage solo targets. If you get the carry or something like that, completely worth it. This looks really scary. And there we go, reduce the damage to TA. And a little bit of armor from Lumi. I don't know if Lumi needed to armor there, but we realized at that point that we weren't going to be able to get the TA, so it's time to retreat. I was waiting for arcane boots, but with the fight happening, I needed to be there. And I basically did everything I needed to in that fight. I should have anchor smashed better. I've seen a couple Winter Wyvern ults that were stolen, so I was worried that that was what was happening. So I should have anchor smashed better. I could have hit 3 heroes there, and actually if I did, we might have killed the TA if you think about it. But I was scared that it was a stolen one for some reason, so I blinked carefully, which was wrong. I should have been blinking right on top of all 3, anchor smash all 3, reduce all their damages by 60%. At that point, we could definitely win that fight, and there was no way the TA could have fought then. We ended up still killing the line, though, so it was okay, but could have been a bit better. Anyways, back to the top lane to farm. You don't really want to go farm the safe lane or the jungle, because your carry could do that instead. So what I usually like doing is I like sitting in the off lane like this, and I maybe aren't... I wish somebody else was here, because we could have killed the Aegis, but... I either farm the creep wave when it gets pushed up, or I'll farm this large camp next to me, or the small camp and continuously push the lane. And it's important that you do this, because if you're not pushing the lane out sometimes, then what happens is your opponents can then split push easier. If I always keep this wave kind of between where it is now and closer towards their tier 1, then if they end up going somewhere else, I can maybe push top, or it gives you protections in a lot of different ways, essentially. It makes you safer. Makes your team safer from objectives, and also gives you better vision. If the creep wave's where I'm standing now, we don't really know where their creep wave is. Now we basically have immobile wards basically on the map, and that's really important to have. And again, no one really showed up, so I thought, maybe I can get greedy here and grab this creep wave. I was able to do that. Looks like they're pushing mid, so I think we were gearing up for a fight. I've got Ravage ready again, so it's definitely ready to go combo. And by staying top, I also got level 11 out of this. So now my Ravage lasts for 2.3 seconds, and it does an extra 90 damage that could hit up to 5 heroes. So if you ravage 5 heroes, you're doing over 1,000. It's like a big finger of death, basically. So having that picked up is really good. I've also been able to farm a Void Stone, which is going to be for my refresher. And we're just waiting for the fight to start, basically. We want more heroes to arrive. And I have to wait for the right timing with my Ravage. Unfortunately, I gushed a little bit late here, and he was able to steal it. I felt really bad about that, but it looks like it didn't matter too much. Very, very close. Because I think Aosin was, he was magic immune there, so I might have been the only person to get hit by the Ravage, but it was very terrible that I got Ravage. I think my blink spot was good because it was in darkness, so they couldn't necessarily see it come out, but it was a very good Ravage. I hit like 4 people with it, but the problem was that obviously I got it stolen. I shouldn't have been stolen. I ended up surviving still. And it was it was an okay fight, honestly. I think we killed the Aegis on TA, and we killed Rubik, but we lost our carry and a support. It wasn't really good, but considering that we were behind, it was okay. But I definitely shouldn't have had it get stolen. Every time you Ravage against a Rubik, you should just anchor smash immediately, or gush immediately. There's no excuse not to do that. And I didn't think about it. I didn't think about protecting my Ravage until he stole it there, and then I felt really bad. And I was checking to see if he still had it, because at points like this, it's really dangerous if they get a big teamfight spell like that, because they can just hold it until the next team fight, and then all of a sudden they Ravage you, and you're like, oh shit, I forgot he still Ravaged in that last fight. But luckily he was killed in that team fight, so he doesn't have it anymore. So, good for us. Reason I bought the Void Stone over any regen is because usually you don't really take any damage from farming. I'm looking to initiate. Got an anchor on 2 here. Bristleback really overstayed. And then he ended up just 420 wrecking us or something. Basically need to just run. I was trying to save everybody, so I anchored here. Probably should have just run. Almost made it. I was very close. That was very intense. I honestly thought that was going to go a lot better, but we weren't able to kill the Bristleback. He just barely survived. If you look at his items, he went... this is the game that I was talking about yesterday, where he went Crimson Guard with Lads. And it actually really paid off right there, because we overextended. Shadow Fiend had to commit to the kill, and it resulted in him being out of position. So in that fight, it was good, but as the game continues, it wasn't very good, because he could have much more farm. Look at his farm right now. He only has 8,000 gold. Maybe that's not based on his items. Maybe it's based on him as a player, but he should have had a lot more items as Bristleback, because he did have such a good early start, and he made that mistake in my opinion. So if you go for teamfight items, and survivability, then your farm is going to be decreased over the course of a long game because you're just simply killing neutral creeps slower and you're not moving from camp to camp faster because of your Santonyash. So definitely hurts you. At this point, I've got Ravage up again. We can definitely go fight if needed. I'm still really far away from my refresher. My KDA is not looking nearly as good as it was a moment ago, but we're keeping the game together, at least is what we got going for us. And again, the important things that I'm doing in team fights, I'm anchor smashing a lot of heroes that are doing damage, such as TA, Bristleback, stuff like that, and landing Ravage on as many people as possible and saving it for the big team fights. What I was saying about the Void Stone, I wanted the Void Stone because I seemed to be running out of mana a bit faster than I was HP. Maybe it would have been better to grab the Ring of Health because over the course of a team fight I would have like an extra 30 HP or something like that. But we were getting ready to fight in the jungle, so I TP'd over here really rapidly just because I wanted to be ready and set up by the time the fight happened, just in case I needed to do the setup Ravage. I don't want to stand too close to the tower though, because if they do have that cliff ward, then they're going to see me standing here. But based on their movement, it didn't really seem like they had vision here. And we had to wait for the PL to show up as well before we were able to chase. So we're basically just waiting for the moment to call where they said go in before we ended up actually chasing them. So went for the split push, Lion was mid, so we said chase them now. And I think that's when PL maybe started TPing. Not quite sure. But the chase call was called basically somewhere around here. I didn't want to show that I was there because it might have revealed it. But that actually ended up being okay because basically PL farmed that entire time. And they had 4 people, looks like we ended up getting the tower too. They had 4 people that were pushing, so that ended up being beneficial for us completely. Frost Armor helps out a lot as well with Tide. Damage block goes out before there's any armor reduction, so it doesn't like stack extremely well like Anchor Smash does. That's the damage reduction with the damage block. That works, that stacks really, really well. But it's still a second layer of survivability basically with the damage block and the extra armor. It's really nice to have. Especially because I'm usually in melee range, they're going to throw attacks at me occasionally, and being able to slow them like that is really significant. I think Ice Armor slows something like 30% for 3 seconds or something on melee. 30%, 20%, 30% movement for 2 seconds, and 20% attack speed slow, which is still pretty good, you know? Definitely not bad at all. So I got my Perseverance finished, so it gives me an extra 10 damage. It's pretty okay to have. Not amazing, not exactly what Tide needs, but the refresher is just so important because once you do get the refresher orb. I didn't actually have intentions to kill this guy, I was just messing with him. And usually this is pretty dangerous to do, but I had a couple of heroes in the area. You know, that was what, a Hex? Got a Hex out of him, they got scared, they know I'm there. Sometimes that's bad to do when you're not actually going to accomplish anything, but I think it's okay as well because it keeps them a little on edge. It's a psychological thing, right? So we're smoking, we're moving towards them. See a lot of heroes. Waiting for them to get a little bit more group. We need the PL to get closer, which is why I didn't go there. But they're actually pretty segmented here. Nice BKB by the TA there. That was a really nice armor by Lumi there. It's keeping us in alive. That basically bought us like 5 seconds in the team fight where they did no damage. That's very, very nice.
We put you to peace.
Alright, that was a really good fight. My Ravage was a fraction of a second slow, but it worked out as a whole. The TA BK beat it, but I caught the other 2, and then Lumi's ultimate was able to catch the TA. It could have gone a lot better for us, obviously, if I was able to ravage the TA, but we basically caught up at this point, in my opinion. If you look at the gold graphs, yeah, they had a moderate advantage here, but it's swinging back up due to that fight. All we lost was Shadow Fiend, and we killed both carries and Bristleback and Lion as well, so that was really good for us. And since there's a bit of downtime before the fight, I decided to go farm, but this is maybe a bit of a mistake because my team is actually pushing towards the tower. But at the same thing, like, is it really worth it for me to be there when I could just be farming instead? Like, I'm a freaking Tidehunter and I don't have Ravage, like I said before. Is it really that useful for me to be there? And at this point I realized it wasn't useful for me to be there. I'm glad that I ended up going to farm instead. It's definitely more helpful. Lion dewarding the sentry. and just continue Nijong, because I just want to finish the Refresher Orb. Second Perseverance. I actually had a little bit of mana problems at this point, because Refresher, I think, gives less int than it did before. You used to be able to just Ravage, Arcane, Refresher, Arcane, Ravage, but I don't think you can do that anymore. At least not if you're level 16. I think I basically hit the point where my mana was a little too high for the Refresher, but that's later. It's not that important right now. We figured they were Roshing there, and unfortunately they were, but that's just kind of unfortunately what happened. If you want to see items of their carries, by the way. Luna's pretty darn farmed. RPL has not much, actually, just Diffuse Blade, almost Samantha. And their TA has Deso BKB, so they got BKBs. Luna's definitely the most farmed hero right now. Lumi gets caught, so he's going to end up going down, which means that we basically can't now we can't fight for the tier 2 now because he's dead for 50 seconds. It's not safe to take a 5v4, so instead I will go push a different lane.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
With the Diffusal Blade, though, Tom can deal with a lot of their carries in some good ways. He can drain the mana pool of TA entirely, and if he does that, there's no meld, there's no refraction. That hero is much worse. If he drains all the mana on Luna, helps a little bit. Not as much as the TA, but still good. If he drains all the mana on Bristleback, that's really good. If Bristle's not casting spells, first of all, he's not slowing people, he's not doing AoE physical, but most importantly, he's not getting Warcry levels. And if he's not getting Warcry levels, I messed up here really bad because I didn't have a TP for 4 seconds. And I didn't want to show in the creep wave because I didn't want them to think that I wasn't going to be there. So this was really unfortunate. I ended up getting there late and Shadow Fiend died. That was my fault. I just didn't think they were going to keep pushing for some reason. Was able to ravage all 3 heroes. Unfortunately, Luna's the one with the really nice armor by Lumi here. Don't know if I did debuff him there actually. Don't know if I got him there or not, but Anchor on 3, going for the Luna. I feel like the team didn't really chase very well here. Really nice Glimmer Cape. Figured he'd be running this way. Really nice stun by line here. That would have been a kill. I would have killed him right there. The Luna.
Rest now.
So that was a surprisingly good fight for us. We basically killed the carries. We didn't get Raxed, and we lost our Shadow Fiend, but you know, it could have been far, far worse, basically. Just put a little nuke on him. This little moment of terror, I was like, oh god, did I overstay? 30 minutes is about where you should aim for your Refresher Orb, though. You can get if you can get it earlier, that's great, but if you get it by about 30 minutes, you feel pretty good, I feel. I think that's okay. 30 minutes is still a very relevant point in games. Like, if you don't have Refresher Orb, your hero is kind of shitty, honestly. Like, one Ravage is good, but I shouldn't have ravaged that many people. I didn't place my Ravage. The big mistake I made in that team fight was I didn't put my Ravage right on top of the TA, because if you do that, the travel time is a little bit later, so they have more time to BKB, but he wasn't paying attention, apparently, and I was able to get it off, but I shouldn't have had that, I think. The Ravage shouldn't have gone that well. I hit too many heroes there. I also bought a Dust here, and I bought that because I felt like, because the Glimmer Cape ended up being a big problem. Here I sell my Ring of Protection. It has served me well, because I need space for TP Scroll, and I thought I was a good hero to Kara Dust, because I'm already going to be jumping in the middle of the team fight. I might as well dust everybody to prevent Glimmer Cape applications. We can always see them, basically. Tom built a Scotty this game, and basically the distinction between Scotty versus Heart on PL is if you can disengage in the fights, then Heart is better. If you are just straight fighting and you're never going to get away until the fight's over, then Scotty is better. And if you really need to deal with BKB heroes, then Scotty is in a lot of ways better as well. So shouldn't have let Lumi cast that. He asked me if I wanted to cast it, and I said sure, because I thought it wasn't going to kill everything. But it killed all the range creeps, so I lost about 100 gold there, which delayed my Refresher very slightly. This is kind of scary to farm up here. Getting closer. I've actually got quite a few CS, I feel. It's not bad. 76. You can actually farm pretty rapidly on Tide. It's not bad. Anchor Smash helps a lot. Plus, you're never taking damage from creeps, so you never have to go back to base. That part's really important. And if you have Arcane Boots, you can very easily deal with the mana upkeep. And they buffed it recently, right? Gives 135... I think they just reduced the cooldown of Energy Booster is all they did. I might be wrong. They also increased the range. I don't think they increased the amount of mana it gives. I might be wrong there. Does it cost mana to cast? Oh, it doesn't anymore. So they did buff it there. So you know, it no longer costs mana to cast, so they did increase the mana it gives. Which is part of the reason I was always full in mana. Also because I had a Perseverance. I actually had % mana regen for once. But this Frost Armor is actually really helpful here. Since I sold my Ring of Protection, my physical survivability is actually a bit weak. Them covering me there was really nice, having that extra survivability. Really important that I get every last hit here if possible. It's getting the refresher is basically the moment where it's like, it's time to fight. We can stay and fight no matter what. We had no idea where their team was going to be though. Got 3 more CS. Couldn't actually see the bristle on the map again, replay bug. So I basically need the 12 gold? 12 gold until my refresher. Very close. And there we go. That gives it to me. So flying out the refresher, now we basically smoke and we go to fight. Arcane's with the PL has been really useful as well because he's been having some mana problems. Butterfly and Luna is actually a pretty big deal. Butterfly Manta style BKB. And there's a refresher. So refresher costs 375 mana, which is huge. That's like half my mana pool. Each ravage is 225. If I hit 16, then it's 325. Definitely can't afford the double ravage, but the wand will help. If I have a full wand, I can definitely do it, but otherwise it's a little tough. Told Tom to push mid here. Do the old one push, everybody sit behind him, get ready to fight thing. Don't know if I agree with him Spirit Line seeing that creep there. I feel like that was a mistake, but since his mana pool is at about half, he might run out, is what I'm thinking. Got a TA over here. We wanted to initiate on her. Then she realizes she blinked into our entire team. It's obviously not good. I think Lumi double tapped Yules just now. I'm not sure though.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
I think that was just Luna illusions. I hit 16 here and I leveled up my ult, which is maybe a mistake because it becomes really hard to afford the mana. 325 here. I think I solo ravaged the bristleback just there. That was a really nice force by Lumi or somebody. I'm just watching BKB time. Fine. That ravage was really good. The previous ravage was bad though. First ravage just hit the bristle. I was hoping it would catch the TP in person, but they came a little bit later, so that one sucked, but the second one was really good. I just really like ravaging though. Every time I ravage like that and we win a fight, it just feels like so much adrenaline. I think this is the point basically where our teamfight ultimates were far better than theirs were, and we were always initiated on them versus the opposite. And they're having issues dealing with the PL. If they had better heroes that could deal with the PL, then if like they had a Sven or something that could just BKB and cleave them down rather than being a vulnerability like TA is, then they would have been in a much better place, I feel. Sold my wand, picked up a plate mail, and I maybe should have just gone for the Mystic Staff because I am building a Shiva's Guard. It's a very good item build on Tidehunter, like we saw on Dota. But I also felt vulnerable a little bit to some other heroes. Like if I didn't get Force Staff before, that Bristleback very easily could have killed me. But by having this the plate mail, I'm now basically extremely survivable versus just being like a little survivable. So it's hard to say. If I have the Shivas or if I had the Mystic Staff, then I guarantee that I can double Ravage. If I get a good Ravage on the first one, then we win the team fight no matter what. So it's a mentality thing. It's like what do you really want? Would you rather have the opportunity? That's the real one, very clearly. Luckily, I was able to keep him segmented from the side. I should have blinked in and anchored earlier. I think I played that team fight really poor. That was not good.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
I think first thing I like zoning the Luna was really good because I kept him out of the team fight for a good 6 seconds. But as soon as I went left, I should have blinked to anchor smash on top of the TA and the Bristle when they were BKB'd. That was a big mistake. Because I could have had that damage reduction in the team fight. If you think about the damage over the fight, that could have been 400 physical damage or something that they put out because I didn't anchor smash there. So I really should have blinked anchor smash. That was really important. At this point, because they have 2 dead carries though, I'm just going to ravage anything that catches 2. I was able to get both. Protecting my anchoring, protecting ravage that is with anchor.
Bottom tower is under attack.
Refresh ravage.
Dire's structures are fortified.
Really big ult by Illumi there. I'm not sure what Aostin had at this point. Looks like MKB Sanjin Yasha. And by killing all their carries there, that guaranteed our second set of racks and basically the victory. So didn't get to ravage my second time. Maybe it would have been better if I had the other item, but who knows. So we won that game. We probably shouldn't have because I fed so much in the safe or in the offlane. But we team fought better than they did over the course of the game. I feel like the TA needed it was kind of a TA pretty much got countered that game, I feel, in a lot of ways. Like we had a lot of slows, we had a lot of DOTs with Winter Wyvern first skill that it makes it really hard for him to chase and blink. Maybe he should have just gone for a movement speed build instead of a blink build, but I'm not sure if that's right either. But Winter Wyvern really countered the heroes that they had there because they basically had 3 heroes that did almost entirely physical damage. And whenever they'd have to go on somebody that got Cold Embrace, then that would buy us like 5 seconds. Like in 5 seconds of 2 carries or 3 carries focusing that person is just such a big mistake. Like it's like an Uber disruption basically. Like it really screws their DPS output and allows us to overtake them in overall damage. So the Winter Wyvern like absolutely was crucial this game in my opinion. Lumi played really well, with the exception of that one gank top. So and his ultis were really on point as well. So I think our heroes just countered theirs a little hard. The Lich armor also helped a lot. It was actually a good Lich game, I feel. Maybe the dual offlane didn't go well, but the Lich armor I think paid off hard against Templar Assassin Luna. And I never really felt like TA was a big threat, and that was probably at least partially because Tom eventually like overcame them with farm. And PL counters their heroes basically. So I had a couple bad ravages. Overall, a semi-weak game, but I had a lot of good team fights, so I felt pretty good about that. It was a little bit worse than I thought it was. I played a little bit worse than I thought I did at the time. Like, obviously I fed, but I felt like my ravages were always on point. But I had 1 or 2 that were just mediocre, and I got ravaged on once, so whatever. Anyways, that's Tidehunter. Thanks everybody for watching. I will see you guys later. Tomorrow I'm going to do a Timbersaw game from the tournament, and I'm probably going to go stream now. So if excuse me, if you're watching this and I'm going to be streaming, come tune in, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.